So if you can you imagine this is your line? This is what you think is good and bad. This is how you would define it. Now, in come your students. You have 20 students walking into your class. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is A, that they have the same line that you do. They don't have the same definition of good and bad. They do view things differently. And B, that they know what your line is. As simple as that. Or C, that they accept your line for what is good and bad. There may be a tremendous difference. Why is this important for a classroom teacher? Well, let's start with that very first aspect. How can you expect students to behave the way that you want them to and display the attitude that you think is a good attitude if you haven't told them what it is? Now, we're going to get to the character cards in a minute, or not a minute, just a little bit more in the class. But the main point of the character card is we are going to tell you, the players, in a very clear and concise manner, this is what a good attitude in our program is. You don't have to agree with it. But if you want us to say that you have a good attitude, you have to understand these are the things. And I'll explain that in much greater detail. You have to explain it to them. The next thing is the assumption that they believe that what you think is good or bad is the same thing. Let me give you an example that drove me crazy, and that is stealing and snitching. So on my football team, from time to time, we would have an issue with one player stealing from another. I've even had it happen in times where it was in the weight room, and the only people there were the football players. And then, of course, they've got an attitude, once you take it, pass it on. So if you get caught, you don't have it, somebody else has. So they ask to go to the restroom, then it's been passed on or anything else like that. Believe me, it's extremely hard to find. You say, well, no, it's hard to find. Those of you in the classroom, you know what I'm talking about. All right? So you get the group of people that were in the weight room and you say, okay, now, here's your teammate. He had his cell phone stolen. Who can help me find that cell phone? I'd like you to stay here. I'm going to go in the office, or we'll keep working out. Somehow get the word to one of the coaches, or somehow get that player's cell phone back. You know, it almost never happens. Almost never, ever, ever happens. There's a code, especially some places where snitching is worse than anything. Of course, it's called stitches for snitches. I'm sure you've all heard that. But that is what they consider good. It's good not to snitch. You know, as simple as that. Some people even believe it's okay to steal. You know what? If I need something bad enough and I don't have it, and life hasn't been fair to me, it's okay. Those are things that you don't value. How about hitting somebody else? You know, in your classroom, don't hit anybody else. But they go home, and every time they do something wrong, their dad bats them in the back of the head. They go with their friends, and every time that something happens, their friends shove them and push them. They don't see anything wrong with it. You know, the list can go on and on and on. You know, what is good and what is bad? Number one, I think you as an educator have to examine what you feel is good and bad. I think you have to come up with a list and have very clear in your own mind, this is what's good and this is what's bad. You have to find a way of conveying it to the students. I think you have to have a plan for conveying to the students what is good and what is bad. Okay? Don't expect consensus either, because that's not going to happen. Now, a lot of what I just talked to you about, what is good and what is bad, is under the teachings of a theorist named Lawrence Kohlberg. And he's really interesting. You know, and he talks about the different stages of morals development. And he uses a classic example, which you may or may not have heard of, called the Heinz experiment. Heinz refers to a man in Germany who was faced with this situation. His wife was dying. There was a medicine that if he could get that medicine, he would save his wife. And the basic details go about like this. The medicine cost $5 to produce, but the scientist that developed it, produced it, and marketed it was charging $200,000 to sell that product. And his justification was that he spent tremendous amount of money and time to develop that particular prescription. And even though it only took $5 to produce, that doesn't tell the whole story. And that he had a right to make a profit in this. And that if he sold it to everybody for $5, he wouldn't have enough money to go on and produce other life-saving drugs. Really, really tough issue. All right, what I want you to do is go to your worksheet and say, who's right? The person that needs the drug. Now, here's one thing I left out. I'm sorry for this. The man went and stole the drugs. Or in a different version of the story, the man had $100,000 and he went and stole another $100,000. So he didn't steal from the scientist. He stole from the banks. So now the drug's still going to be produced, but he stole from the bank. So now, and I apologize for getting in the wrong order. On your worksheet, the question is, how do you feel about the Heinz experiment? Do you think the man was right to steal it from the scientist? Do you think the man was right and it was okay to steal it from a bank and then buy it from the scientist? Or do you think the man was right to just accept the fact that he couldn't get that drug and therefore his wife was going to die? All right, take a moment and do that. Okay, welcome back. Wow, isn't that a tough decision? And Lawrence Kohlberg, that is the basis of all his theories about the stages of moral development. And how you answer that, he'll put you into different categories of moral development, not right or wrong, but just different categories of your moral beliefs, okay? But the reason that I asked you to do that experiment is, you know, something dealing with right or wrong, there's so many situations where it's not just simple, this is good, this is bad. You have to totally understand that when you're dealing with your students. I think that those master teachers have the flexibility to understand, hey, my students don't understand that. My student didn't do that thing wrong because they wanted to. They did it because they didn't realize it was wrong. That it didn't dawn on them that that was not the right way to do things. You shouldn't lean over and back somebody in the back of the head. Or if you want a pencil and the other student's got two, you just take one of their pencils because they won't miss it. Or there's no reason not to leave trash inside your desk every day. Or there's no reason to come to class on time every day. Or there's no reason to be respectful. Why should I act respectful? This is all a huge issue, and I think it's an issue that you as an educator have to develop your own philosophy on. But most important, you have to have the understanding that you have to tell your students this is what a good attitude is, not just assume that they know it automatically. Okay, now it's time that we finally get to the character card system. I've been talking about it the whole class, and now we're going to spend a great amount of time using it as an example. Now, this is my system, as I'm going to repeat to you many, many times. I'm not telling you, do this. I'm just saying, this is my system for developing a good attitude in the students that I work with. It's been tremendously, in my opinion, successful to me. It's the way I do it. It gives me confidence to know, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I develop a good attitude in the students. Let's first of all talk about the system for using the character card. So I go to the printer and I have them printed. I have 2,000 printed. I have a really good deal with a printer that I met when I was at Hamilton. They're down in the Lakota district, and they will print 2,000 character cards for me for around $350. It's well worth the $350 because it's the basis of everything that we do. So now I've got 2,000 character cards that we're going to use with the team. The first time that we give the character cards to the players is at that May kickoff meeting. And what we tell them is, from this day on, you will fold that card up so it folds into panels. Comes out looking something like that. All right? And you will carry it in your wallet 7/24. Now, part of the rowing exercise is that we have to convince them that it's their card, not my card. And we talked about that earlier. So they're going to carry that card in their wallet 7/24. We do have a system, whereas if myself or a teacher or a coach says, show me your character card because I want to talk to you about something on the character card, and they don't have that character card in their pocket, in theory, we're going to give the entire team a CAT. C-A-T. Crimes against the team. A lot of people disagree with punishing the whole team for the actions of one. I don't think that's the case. I do believe in it, especially in a team situation like athletics. Classroom, that's a little different. But when you're in a team situation, we do believe in CATs. And every day after practice, we have a conditioning exercise, which we have one of the coaches, which is called a CAT master, and he has them perform an exercise based upon the number of CATs is how long the exercise lasts. So players can get bad cats for bad behavior, so there's more exercise for the team, or good cats, and they have to take it away. All right, but one of the things that we tell our players is if you don't have your character card in your wallet, that's one cat the entire team is going to do. Now, how many times in the 30 years that I've used this card, or 25 years, have we actually done that? Not very many. Maybe every once in a while for an extreme case where the player was sort of showing a disrespect by not carrying it. But that sort of goes against my philosophy that it's got to become their card, and if I make them carry it. So in theory, we do tell them they have to do it. But reality, who knows, maybe not quite so much. So now let's go with the theory that they're carrying it. And during the season, I think they do, and I'll tell you why. Now we go to the season, and now we have 10 games. We will give them a new card every Monday during the season. So they'll walk out of the locker room. We have a chair sitting at the end of the locker room. They pick up their card, and they take it with them. All right? There's a panel on the card that I'm going to talk about here called the goals panel. All right, they will fill that goals panel out. Now, opponents, we had study table on Tuesday, so it was very, very easy for me to check their goal panels every Tuesday. I sat at the front of the study table. There were other coaches that actually did the monitoring, but all I did was check, call their name, up they come, showed me their character card, filled it out, and then I'll explain to you what I did with it. All right, as simple as that. Then every week, we gave them a new character card. So that's why we needed the 2,000. Now let me actually go to the character card and talk about some of the panels on the character card. The two primary character card panels deal with a good attitude and why you play, but there's other panels on it. The first panel is a real simple one. That's just the cover panel. That was the card for 2017 for my Golden Panthers opponents high school. So that's it. The next panels were the summer schedule. So remember, we gave them their schedule at the beginning of the summer at the kickoff meeting. Well, now they got into their wallet to carry with them. And by the way, there's a copy of this card in your worksheet. So if you want to go to your worksheet, you can pull the card out and follow along and read it in detail as I go through it. All right, here's the next panel. I'm going to spend some time talking about this particular panel. This is the goal panel. This is what I check on Mondays, all right? It has 4 different goals on it. So at the top, they put their name. Then they put a personal goal, and it says in parentheses, it has to be specific, all right? Next is their academic goal, and it has to be specific. Next is their football goal, and it has to be specific. And lastly is their team goal, and that generally is the same for each one. Now, let me tell you what we're looking for on each of those panels. The personal goal has to be something that's specific. What are you going to do to become a better human being? Here's some of the examples. I mean, there's thousands of examples that I could give you. But here's one. I'm going to call my grandmother, who I haven't talked to for a month, and I'm at least going to say hello and ask her how she's doing. Okay, that's great. Now, it has to be so specific that the next week, if I was to ask you, did you call your grandmother, there's a yes or no answer. Yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Just as simple as that. I'm going to sit next to a person in the cafeteria that I know no one else is sitting with. I see them every day. No one's sitting with that person in the cafeteria. I'm going to sit next to them in sincerity, not for show. Just say, do you care if I sit with you today? I'm such and such. And you see that person in the hall, you say hello to them. So you step outside yourself. That's tremendous. You're becoming a better person. I have a friend that I know is struggling. I'm going to go talk to him and ask him what's wrong. So I can ask you, did you sit next to that person in the cafeteria? Did you go and ask your friend what's going on? What are you going to do to make yourself a better person? Set a goal. Number 2, academically. I'm going to study for 45 minutes for my history test. All right? They all want to say general things. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to study more. I'm going to get better grades. That's too general. 45 minutes for my history test. Next week, I can ask them, did you study 45 minutes for your history test? As simple as that. I'm going to stay for extra tutoring for Spanish because I'm getting a D in Spanish. Wait a minute. What's the student telling you? If their goal is a D, they're telling you, I'm getting an F. Okay? As simple as that. So I'm going to stay as the extra tutor for Spanish. The next thing is football. I won't talk much about that. I'm going to get my hands inside. I'm going to take a shorter first step. And then the last thing was a team goal. We're going to beat Dunbar. We're going to beat Belmont. We're going to beat whoever it is that we played that particular day. So that is what they would fill out. And they'll fill out a new one every week, and then they keep it. You know, it's sort of interesting when I mentioned keep it. At some schools, I get invited to end of the year graduation parties, and you look at their scrapbooks, and a whole lot of players have their goal cards, all 10 goal cards, in their scrapbooks. It was that important to them, especially at CJ, where we really got the system going, and at Hamilton, where we really got it going also. Okay, now, what do we do in regards to the goal cards? Well, on Mondays, I check them. At Ponitz, I told you, I didn't tell you, but at Ponitz, we had study table on Mondays. So at study tables, I had two coaches that monitored and walked around and helped the players. But I just sat at a table up front, and they came up one at a time. They got in line, and they showed me their character card. All right? I looked at those very quick. I could do 80 players in 20 or 25 minutes. Because I just look, I say, okay, good, that's great. But I had a little tablet over here. And if there was something on the character card that stuck out to me, I make myself a note. This, that, and the other thing, okay? What would I make a note on? Here's an example. I hope that my dad comes to see me play. Whoop, make a note. Dad comes see him play. That's something really important. He's telling me these are issues I'm dealing with. This is a great way to do it. Remember the student that's telling you he's got a D in Spanish? He's telling me, I'm flunking Spanish. He's telling you that. So at the end of the semester, or at the end of the 9 weeks, if he flunked Spanish and he's off the team and you act surprised, he told you 4 weeks in a row, I got a D in Spanish. My goal is to get a D, all right? Same thing with the football techniques of the team. I don't look at those quite as much. They don't really that important because they're all football, really. I'll see that on the field, as simple as that. You know, one of the things that I look for as far as personal, I want to feel like I'm an accepted part of the team. I look at that really close. You know, let's talk especially about seniors. Every senior, when he goes into the season, has the hope of being a starting player. I can think of very few seniors I've ever coached that went into the season saying, boy, my goal is to be second team. They all have the hope that they're going to be first team. Now, that doesn't happen. You know, I've had teams with as many as 25, 30 seniors. And on those teams, probably 12 or 14 seniors started. The rest were underclassmen. I've had teams where only 8 seniors started. As simple as that. That means that you got a whole lot of disappointed seniors, okay? I read their cards real close. I really look at them. Because if they say something on there that even relates to not feeling connected to the team, that's huge to me. I write that down, okay? All right. So I write all those things down. And then on Tuesday nights, after practice, remember I'm doing this on Tuesday with the players. All right. Now, when we didn't have study table at Ponitz, at all the other schools, I sat in my office. And luckily, I had 2 doors in all of my offices. The players walked in one door, showed me their name, walked out this door, and had another coach check their names off to say who had turned them in, okay, and who had shown me. And of course, you don't show me your character card before you went home, can't. Just a matter. Now, we did enforce that. That's a matter of responsibility. You can show me your card, as simple as that. Now, after practice on Tuesday, I would take that tablet. It never had more than 20 things on it. It may have 8 or 7 or 8, but I would go through that tablet and say, okay, guys, here's the issues that our players are dealing with. What are you going to do about it? So if I had 8 coaches and there were 16 issues, each coach had a job that had 2 things that they had to do. All right. Now, there were some times where the coaches couldn't stay for staff meetings. I sent a daily letter out to my coaches, a staff letter, and I would put those things in the staff letter. Jobs to be completed. See this player, see that player, see this player. This is the most important thing we can do. You know, all those coaches want to watch film and draw plays. And hey, what is more important than addressing the issues of our players? Just as simple as that. Let me give you an example. The young man that said, I hope that my dad comes see me play. I would say to the coach, hey, give his dad a call. Find out what's going on. Why isn't Dad coming to the games? Is there any way? We'll give him a free ticket. Is there any way at all that you can get Dad to come? Okay. Most of the time successful. That's happened a lot, by the way. Sometimes it's not successful. All right. Let's go to plan B. Let's get Grandpa to come to a game. Or let's get the uncle come to a game. And let's make a special point that you bring that Grandpa down to the locker room after the game and just say, hey, look who was here to see you play tonight. All right. Here's another one. That player that's getting, his goal is to get a D in Spanish. Get him to tutoring. He's got to come to practice late. He's got to be tutored. He's not going to do us any good in weeks 9 and 10 if he's not eligible. Plus, that's why we're here. Academics are first, and we've got to send that message. You make sure that that young man starts going to tutoring so that he gets the grades that he needs and he takes the proper attitude towards academics as opposed to athletics. You know the one I mentioned about the young man feeling like he's part of the team? That one's important. We have a philosophy. Never let the door close on the car that's taking a young man home where he doesn't feel like he's valued in the program. So that's one. Does it always work? What I'd like the coach to do on Wednesday is take the young man aside and say, listen, I know you're not started. I know you're disappointed, but you're valued in the program. You are someone who is important to us in this program. You're contributing to the team. The reason that you're not playing is because we think that the other player is a better player than you. Just plain and simple. It doesn't have any reflection on what we value you. It's just a decision. If we thought you were better, I'd be having this talk with another player. That's just a reality. We can only put 22 players on the field. You are valued. Does it work? A lot of times it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But at least you tried. What else option do you have to help these young men? So, the goal sheets. Why do we do it? Number one, the goal panel on the sheet. Number one, I'm a great believer in setting goals. Let me talk about that just a little bit. I think that that is a lesson that we can teach all of our students that's going to affect them the rest of their lives. You know, there's a famous study at Harvard University, the great Harvard, way a long time ago. They took the graduating class and they asked the graduating class, how many of you have clearly defined written goals that you review on a regular basis, and they are specific? 3% of the graduating class of Harvard said that they had goals that were clearly defined and specific, they were written, and they reviewed them on a regular basis. All right? 97% did not do that. 20 years later, they sent out a survey to that class, and they had the results of the first survey. How much money are you making? They found that the 3% that had clearly defined, written, regular reviewed goals were making 97% of the income that that class was making. The other 97% was only making 3%. Now that is an extreme case, but it's a great example that I tell players. Setting goals is something that's going to be very good and beneficial to you for the rest of your life. How about this? If you don't know where you're going, that's where you're going to get. You're going to get nowhere. So as a classroom teacher or any other area of education, how does it apply to you? I think that you should do things to help your students set goals. I think you should have them set goals in your class. I think they should be specific. I think you should do it more than just once in a year. I think you should do it regularly. Let's reset our goals. We start a new unit. What are the goals for this unit? I think that's important. You know, the next thing that's important is that we're addressing the issues that the players are telling us about. People have issues. They're dying to tell somebody. They're dying for somebody to help them. You know, this is the issues that I have in my life. And then number 3, this deals with just the uniqueness of the football program. I have a chance that way for every player on my team for one time in that week to look me in the eyes. I look him in the eyes, and he's got a chance to tell me something. You say, well, of course you do. Well, think about yourself. If you're a high school teacher, you're in the worst situation for this particular example, in that you have 120 students during the course of the day, 100 students. Do you give every one of those students some attention every single day or even every week? How about that student never raises their hand? They're nice kids, don't cause any trouble, they're just there. You know, you've got that student that answers 2/3 of the questions in your class, you give them a lot of attention. In sports, my team stars I give attention to. Those starters I give. What about that third team sophomore guard? How much interaction has he had with me as the head coach? Maybe none. I hope not. But you know what? This is one chance for me to do that. That's why the goals panel is so extremely important. Let's go to the other panels on the card. Okay. The next panel that I want to talk about is our schedule. That, you know, we list that every year. There's our varsity schedule so that they've got it in their wallet all the time. Let's talk about the next panel. This is something that I'm a great believer in. Golden Panther football, no excuse university. We don't allow excuses in our program. It is so important that we put it on our character card. This is everything, remember. This is our entire program. What we stand for is what is spelled out on this card. No Excuse University. You know, something we tell our players is excuses. Your friends don't need them and your enemies don't believe them, so don't give them. The other thing, it all goes back to what I talked about earlier, that concept of fairness. There are a whole lot of young people that life has not been fair to. If they take the attitude that life is not fair and therefore I'm not going to succeed, then that's what's going to happen to them. They're not going to succeed. You know, when they go to apply for a job, the employer doesn't care what obstacles that they had to overcome to get there. All he cares about is, what are you going to do for my company? We don't allow excuses. If a young man starts out a sentence by saying, my mom, whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 not your mom. You are responsible for your behavior. In other words, why didn't you get to practice on time? Well, my mom, no. You're responsible. You are a man. Now, we're dealing with high school kids in this particular situation. But I think to lesser degrees, it goes all the way down. You can't let students use excuses that they have for their failure to do anything. You know, their situation is their situation. There are obstacles that they have to overcome, or obstacles that they have to overcome to achieve success in life. Now, the good thing is that I can look back on my career, and when you reach my age, I hope you can look back on your career and think of all the young people that overcame obstacles to become successful. What was the one thing they had in common? They refused to allow the excuses to be a part of their lives. They went on and they were successful despite their obstacles and overcoming their obstacles. That is something that we talk about all the time. The referees didn't beat us. The weather didn't beat us. The teammates didn't beat us. The coaching staff, the report coaching didn't beat us. We lost. No excuses. Let's move on to next week and make better things happen. How can that apply to your classroom? Same thing. I think you've got to accept, to promote the culture that there's no excuses allowed. This is a no excuses zone when you come in here. You're going to perform to the best of your abilities, and that's what I'm going to expect of you. All right, what are the other two panels? I'm going to go into great detail in just a few minutes on each of the other two panels. The first one is 10 keys to a, in this case, Golden Panther attitude. Of course, before that it said Withrow Tiger attitude. Before that it said Hamilton Big Blue attitude. Before that it said CJ Eagle attitude. Before that it said Middletown Midi attitude, and so on and so on. So what are the keys to a good attitude? Now, when do we do that? So how do we present it? First of all, every one of those is a 10 to 15 minute talk by me. I will talk in great detail and explain to the players, this is what a good attitude is. Right on that card that they have at that particular meeting, they're going to write down the number 1 through 10 and rate themselves on whether they have a good attitude or whether they don't have a good attitude. 10 being high, 1 being low. Quite obviously, the challenge that we give to them is, if you've got some low grades there and you really want to have a good attitude in this program, change it. Remember what we talked about. 3 things we believe about attitude. You can change it anytime you want. It's the easiest thing in your life that you can change. You have more control in everything. Then change it. Remember what I talked to you about, Lawrence Kohlberg, what is good, what is bad. This is good. We tell them very, very specifically. I give a 10 to 15 minute talk about it. Now, how do we do that? We have what's called a team character retreat. We have 10 days that we call practice days in the summer. The state allows us to have those in the summer. Now, we take one of those 10 days, and it's that important to us, and we get school buses, and we go off campus, and we go somewhere. Now, the best place to go is a college campus. When we were at CJ, we went all kind of places. We went to Ohio State. We went to Notre Dame. We went to all kind of colleges that we could go to. We went to the University of Dayton, and we used their meeting facilities for our character retreat. When I was at Big Blue, we were right down the street from Miami. Miami coaches opened the doors for us. Now, it was in late July, so the meeting rooms were available, and it was off the charts. And then in Withrow, we were right down the street from UC. The UC facilities, I mean, my house is not as nice as their team meeting rooms. It's one of the nicest rooms you've ever been in. And we got to get, they use that, our players, for this 7 hour. The team retreat takes the total thing It's an entire day. And I'll explain to you how the day works in just a second here. There. You know, when we went to opponents, we really, so 1 year we went to UD, but 2 years we went to shelters in the park system with nice big shelters outside, and that worked just as well for us. So how did the day go? The day went like this. I would cover numbers 1, 2, and 3, a talk by me. This is what a good attitude is in our program, and cover topics 1, 2, 3. We would then break into groups, seniors, juniors, sophomores, okay? They would come back then and they would write on the board 4 things that represent what the senior class is going to stand for as far as attitude. Juniors, same thing. Sophomores, the same thing, okay? They would give me 1 sheet. I would put it in an envelope. I said, okay, I'm going to hold this for the whole season. And at the end of the year, I'm going to ask you, did you do those things? Did you live up to what was a good attitude for your class that you guys created here in the retreat? Did you live it? Did you walk the walk, or is it just talk? As simple as that. We go 4, 5. Then we feed them. What was really neat was when we went to college campuses, we worked out a situation where they could go to a college cafeteria and it was all you can eat lunch. And they just love that. Okay, let me expand upon that a little bit. It's amazing how many of my players, the first time they've ever set foot on a college campus was at the team retreat. That wasn't just at Withrow and Ponus that are classified, quote, as inner city schools. That was at all the schools, Hamilton Big Blue, and Chaminade, Julienne. It was the first time so many of them had actually been on a college campus. And I wanted to give them the experience as much of the college campus as they possibly could through this team retreat. That was a secondary goal. So we had a great lunch. Kids loved it and got along. We give them an hour. Just relax, no rush. Come back, I cover 6, 7. Break into offense and defense. Offense, put your 4 keys, just 4 they put on the board. It's a good attitude. I'm going to put the sheet in the envelope. Defense, at the end of the year, I'm going to take that envelope out and I'm going to review it with you. Did you live up to having a good attitude? We come back, we finish 7, 8, 9, and 10, and we're done. When we were on the college campuses, we showed the head coach would come in, and almost without exception, it was July. It was a time when they had a little bit of time, and he would talk to the team about attitude. And then they showed a highlight film from the UC Bearcats or Ohio State Buckeyes or something of that nature. So it was a great day. When you got on those buses going back to school, you just hoped this is a different group than what we brought. You could sense the amount of buy-in that the young men had just by the way they behaved that day. That's a long day. That's a lot of talking by me, okay? Which normally, that'd be boring. I mean, that's a lot of talking, all right? But you just had a sense. If nothing else, you knew this. We've told them what a good attitude is. Now it's up to them. There's no excuses. Well, I didn't know. Yeah, you do know. You shouldn't go in the end zone and do a dance and do this and draw all attention to yourself, okay? That's not what a humble person does, which is one of our 10 reasons. You would act in a certain way. This is how you act, and that's what a good attitude is in our class, okay? All right, now I'm going to hold the last panel, the why, until I actually get to that section. Now, I have something I want you to do. I want you to reflect upon what's a good attitude in your class. On the first day of class, if you were to go in and speak to your classes, whatever grade level it is, or if you're a guidance counselor, what's a good attitude that you expect the students working with you? If you're an administrator, what's a good attitude that you expect all the students in the school to show? What would be on your list of keys to good attitude? I'm sure it would be age relevant and specific to your area and specific to you as a person. But every one of you should be able to craft that list, 10 keys to a good attitude in my classroom. Let's just use that as an example. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed doing that. I don't know whether you've done that in the past, but I think that's something that every educator should do. If you don't understand your keys to a good attitude, how can you expect your students to do that? Not only do you understand it, I think you should have them written down so that you can look at them from time to time, review them with your students from time to time, and actually go over it when there's problems in those particular areas. Now what we're going to do is get to my character card. And again, this is strictly an example to motivate you. Now, in your folder, you will find my character card. Would you take a minute, go to your folder, open it up, and look through my 10 reasons for a good attitude? Okay, welcome back. Now, I'm going to go through some of mine just to give you an example of what I do. Now, what I want to stress to you is this. For each one of these 10 keys, when I'm talking to my players, I try to use stories. And here's what I found out. I think stories have a tremendous effect upon people. I think an example of that is the Bible. Some people feel that the Bible is one of the greatest books ever written. It's certainly circulation and everything else, facts back that up. Now, what makes the Bible so great? Quite obviously, the moral and religious content is so important to people. But what makes it memorable? If you were just memorizing things, the Bible really is not that great. They did a study one time and they found out that more people could tell you the ingredients to a Big Mac sandwich or could tell you the names of the Brady children than could tell you the 10 Commandments. So rote memory is not what the Bible is all about. But what the Bible is about is a series of stories. Cain and Abel, the Last Supper, the multiplication of fish and bread. You know, those are stories that people remember. Well, I take that same philosophy with my character card when I'm talking to my team. I give them a little bit of talk about what the term means, but then I try and tell stories. And the more I can relate it to them, the closer I can get it to them, the more effective I believe it's going to be. I think the same thing is true with you. I think all of you have the ability to be storytellers. Some of you just need to be challenged to do that. Now, part of the assignment that you're going to do is that you are going to do page 1 will be the list of your 10 keys of good attitude. But page 2 is going to be, you're going to write 2 stories. And you're going to tell those stories as if you were telling them to your students. And I do that to challenge you. Number one, I think you'll enjoy it. But to challenge you to prove to yourself you are storytellers. And you would enjoy doing it. And you do have a lot to offer. Now, quite obviously, at age 72, I have a few more experiences to draw from than many of you younger educators, but you still have your own life as the best experiences. If you don't have your own life, there's so many sources online that you can go and you type in hard work, and you will see all kinds of stories, and all the chicken soup books are great for having stories. So with that being said, let's go to my list. And I'm going to tell you what I would present to my players, probably a shortened version. I'm going to try to give you, say, a 4 or 5 minute talk of what would normally be a 10-minute talk. So, number 1 on the card is, will you work hard to achieve your goals? I would think that almost all of you would have had that somewhere on your list of 10 keys to a good attitude. You know, the one thing that I tell my players is this: nothing great is going to be achieved without hard work. If you feel you're going to be successful in a profession, in athletics, in academics, in your personal life even, and you don't work hard, you are mistaken. It's just not going to happen. And one of the reasons is because hard work is a relative thing. In other words, you are working hard to get the same things other people want. So let's relate it to a football team. You know what? If we're working at, say, a level 7, and our opponents are working at a level 8 or a level 9, they're probably going to beat us, assuming that our talent is equal. As simple as that. The same thing in your classroom. If you're setting a standard of, say, 6 for your students for hard work, and everyone else is working at a 7 or 8 or even a 9, they're going to perform better on the standardized test than your students are. Hard work is something that students have to buy into. It's critical for success in any endeavor in life. Hard work is important. Now, I'm going to relate 2 stories of former players of mine that are extreme examples of hard work. The first one involves a young man who I'm so proud of. His name is Barrett Robinson. And let's start with his freshman year for Barrett. When the freshman football players come in, I give all of them a talk and I tell them what good character is. And I define it very simply as this. I ask them to hold out their right hand and I say, and this is good character. This is the right thing to do in life. Hold out your left hand. This is the wrong thing to do. Right thing, wrong thing. Good things, bad things. Right things, wrong things. Pretty simple. And you know what? 99% of the time, or 90-some% of the time, you know what's right from wrong. It's just a matter of making a decision of doing what's right from wrong. And from those times where you don't know, you say, I really don't know what's right or wrong, ask somebody. And that's why what we tell our players, your coaches are here. We would love it if you would come and ask us what is right and what is wrong, because I want to do the right thing. That's why as a classroom teacher, I'd love for you to use that example for your students and encourage them, if they don't know what's right or they don't know what's wrong, to come and ask you. That's why when you have discussions with your students, possibly ask them, did you know what was right? That's 90% of the time, yeah, I know what was right. I just made a wrong decision. It's the first step to dealing with the behavior is the student admitting, I did something wrong. As simple as that. But of course, it goes back to that definition we had before about Lawrence Kohlberg and what's right and what's wrong. Maybe they don't see it, and you did see it that way. So anyway, I give that talk. The next part of the talk I say is that everybody wants to live in the middle. Everybody thinks that they can live in the middle and still be successful. Well, and partially that's true, because nobody's always perfect. Nobody does everything right. And nobody's all terrible, where people do things terrible all right. Which means that all of us live somewhere in the middle. And the point that I want to make to my players is this: the closer you can live to the right side, the more you can live your life closer to what is the right thing, the happier you're going to be, the more successful you're going to be, the more popular you're going to be in the long run. Now, short term, sure, sometimes short-term rewards and short-term happiness you gain by doing the wrong thing. But long term, over the course of a longer period, over the course of your life, the more you live in the right hand, the happier, more successful, more popular person you're going to be. Now, Ben, how does that relate to Barrett? Came up to me after I gave the talk. He's a 14-year-old freshman. He says, Coach Place, I have a goal that I want to achieve in my life. In order to achieve that goal, I have to live my entire life in the right hand. I have to do everything perfect. I said, Barrett, that's not possible. Don't try to do that. And he wasn't perfect. He was a young man. He did a little mischievous thing here. Nothing terrible, but a little mischievous here. But he did set his goal. He was always going to live in the right hand. Because he had this goal. Now, what did he do to achieve the goal? Well, first of all, he was in athletics. He played football in the fall, winter track in the winter, and then spring track in the spring. All right, so he would go to practice and then go right to the weight room and lift weights for about another 45 minutes. Then he would go home, and he would eat his dinner, and at 7:30 every school night for 4 years, he went to bed. He got up at 3:30 every school morning and studied till 6:30 because, in his own words, he said, Coach, I just liked it fresh in my mind because I had to be the best version of me that I could possibly be to reach my goal. He worked hard in athletics, something that was extremely rewarding. His senior year, he was named the Wendy's High School Heisman Trophy winner. I got to sit in the fourth row with his parents and hear these words on national TV, and now the winner as a top scholar athlete in the United States of America from Dayton, Ohio, Barrett Robinson. All right, Barrett had numerous college scholarships for football. He says, Coach Place, that's not taking me where I want to go. I have a goal, and that's not reaching that. So he decided to attend Morehouse. The Morehouse is down in Atlanta, Georgia. It's considered the Black Harvard. Spike Lee, Dr. King, all of our great leaders, a lot of our great black leaders attended college there. And it's a wonderful school. But Barrett had reasons for going there. From there, he went to medical school. He went to Duke, okay? Now, everywhere that Barrett went, high school, Morehouse, Duke, he was valedictorian. He was number one in his class everywhere he went because those work habits that he developed in high school, he did similar things at every level. A lot of times he got up early in the morning, but he developed a plan to work hard. After Duke, he went on to his residency at Harvard. Graduated valedictorian at Harvard. From there, he went to Northwestern for his internship. Graduated number one there. But everywhere he went, he developed a system for working hard. Most of the time, it involved getting up early in the morning, going to bed early at night, and getting up and studying so it's fresh in his mind. So now he is 33 years old. He's gone to school all that time. It's time for him to reach his goal. What's the goal that he reached? Well, as you can figure, he is now Dr. Barrett Robinson. He is a high-risk prenatal surgeon. And what does a high-risk prenatal surgeon do? There are babies all over the United States where the doctor goes, you know, I mean pregnant women, that the doctor goes to them, I'm not sure I can save your baby. We've got problems here. But there's a group of high-risk prenatal surgeons that are considered the greatest practice in the world up in Chicago, Illinois. And if we can get you into them, we got a chance to go into the best in the world to try and save this baby. So what's Dr. Barrett Robinson doing today at age 44? He's saving babies. He does this every day. Was that worth all the work and all the time that he put in? Quite obviously, he feels it is. And actually, he had at age 14, he knew that he wanted to go to Northwestern to intern because he knew exactly what practice he wanted to be part of in order to be one of the best prenatal surgeons in the world, which U.S. News and World Report has listed him as. They put him in that category. Just a phenomenal person. And I'm so proud that I was a part of his life, as simple as that. What's the whole message of Dr. Robinson? Quite obviously, work hard. It's a relative thing. He found a way to work harder than everybody else that wanted the same thing he did, and he reached his goals. You know, I want to tell you another story about working hard. This story deals with a player that I had a great honor of coaching at Middletown, and his name is Kenny Burris. Now, Kenny Burris, as a sophomore, was a thin, probably 5'10", 145-pound, very talented player. Very, very good player. But we had so many good players at Middletown that his sophomore year, he was not a varsity player. He played some on defense, but he wanted to be a tailback. He wanted to be a running back, but we were loaded with tailbacks, so that wasn't going to happen. So we did a drill every day that we had contact called the hamburger drill. And in hamburger drill, it was a real simple drill. You had an offensive lineman here, you had a defensive lineman here. They hit each other. One of them drove the other one back, basically, and they won the hamburger drill, and they become better football players because that's what happened in the real games. Well, part of the drill was over here, behind the offensive player, what's called a rabbit. And all he had to do was run to the right or run to the left, so everybody in the drill knew the direction the ball was going to go, which is part of the drill. Well, his sophomore year, Kenny Burris was always the rabbit. And he would run to the right or run to the left. And that's all he had to do. He wasn't in the drill. He didn't even get hit. They would put a hand on him sometimes. Well, we had a player at Middletown that year, John the Bull Peterson. 6'3", 310 pounds as a senior in high school. Went on to become a great football player at Ohio State, and actually is a college coach now and coached at Ohio State with Coach Tressel. Just a tremendous person. So proud of the Bull. Well, how did he get his name, the Bull? He loved hamburger. He would destroy anybody that got across from him. No one wanted to even think about going against the Bull, except one person. Every single day, Kenny Burris said, I want to go against the Bull. And every day I told him, Kenny, just go back and be a rabbit. And even John Peterson said, Kenny, just get in line, will you please? And that's how he got the name the Chicken Hawk. And this name is with him today, Kenny, the Chicken Hawk Burris. It's after a cartoon character that used to be a little chicken hawk that always wanted to fight the big rooster named Foghorn Leghorn. So the kids at Middletown gave him the nickname Chicken Hawk. He loved that nickname. So he would do that. Now, one day I got called away, and the assistant coach in charge got tired of seeing Kenny do this, and he let the Bull go against Kenny. And the Bull didn't want to, but coach said do it. It was just terrible. I mean, I came down, his helmet was crooked on his head. He had to be carried off the field. So a guy with heart. Every drill he did the same thing. He jumped in, he'd go against anybody, and a good player. But really, we had lots and lots and lots of good players at Middletown Middies at that time. The season ends, I'm sitting in my office. Chicken Hawk, what's going on? Come on in. He said, Coach, I want to talk to you. And I think to myself, the poor guy took such a beating, he's going to quit. He says, Coach, I want to be a Division I football player. I want to get a full Division I scholarship. I said, well, Kenny, those are hard to get. I mean, there's about 130 players in the state of Ohio. That's a big state that get a full scholarship. I said, but I will not destroy your dreams. I will tell you what you have to do to get there. You have to work hard. That is one thing that you're going to have to do, and I'm going to tell you 3 areas that you have to work hard in. And you have to set your goal to work hard in those 3 areas. Number 1, academics. I think you have to have about a 3.0 to feel really comfortable that you're going to be recruited. Colleges don't want dummies. They don't want you to come in and flunk out or be a detriment to them in the college. Number two, you got to get stronger. You got to get your bench press up around 280 or so. You got to get a lot stronger, okay? And number three, you got to get faster. So you got to be, maybe one of the top 20 people in the state of Ohio as far as speed. He said, Coach Dunn, he did almost the same thing to Barrett. Didn't get up early in the mornings. But one thing he did was, for the next 2 years, he lived about 2.5 miles from the school. He put his backpack on and he ran to school, and at home he ran afterwards. He did play football. He did indoor track. He did outdoor track. He went to the weight room after that. He studied 2 hours a night, every night. Now, mom and dad, very disciplined, helped him a lot in that. But Kenny did all that. You know the story. In his senior year, he signs a full scholarship to Bowling Green State University and goes on to have a great college career. And in college, he asked his coach, Coach, how do I get to the NFL? They made a plan. He set his goals. Remember we talked about goals before? He set his goals, and then he achieved that. He went to the NFL. He went to the Canadian League. He had a much longer, he got about 3 or 4 years in the NFL, and then about 6 or 7 years up in Canada. He played a lot of professional football, made a lot of money, earned a career out of it. Got a call one day, though. I said, Coach, they said my heart is bad. He's crying. I can't play football. I said, chicken out, get in the car, come on home, coach for me. And he's been an assistant coach with me ever since that time, and just a tremendous role model for young men. So those are 2 examples of working hard. Nothing in life comes without work hard. In our football program, we are going to work you very, very hard. So when we work you hard, instead of complaining, instead of being upset, think of it this way. We're helping you reach your goals. We're helping you develop a habit that's going to be successful all your life. There are times that I want to back off a little bit on my players. I won't do it. I won't do it. We need to teach them the value of working hard. They'll thank you for it some other time, even if it's a habit that's terribly hard for them to break. All right, let's go to another one of the 10 reasons for a good attitude on the card, and that's number 9. Are you brave enough to be masculine? And I word it that way in particular because I want people to stop and think about that. What are you talking about, masculine? Is this one of those things where you're going to tell them to be macho and be tough? And it's just 100% the opposite. And here's the talk. Now, first of all, the talk that we give, you have to realize what the audience is. The audience, in all but one case in my career, is all men. Okay, I did have one outstanding female player play for me in Hamilton. Just loved her to death. But anyway, it's all men. And they are young men. And one of the things that they want more than anything else in the world is to be identified as being a man. In other words, all their life growing up, they were a youngster or whatever category you want to call them. But now, rightfully so, they want to be considered a man. We constantly talk about how a man acts, what a man does. If you truly want to be called a man, this is what you should do. And I tell them this, we're going to define being a man by one category that stands above all the rest. There's lots of them. There's all kinds of categories. But for Coach Jim Place, if you want me to define you as a man, the rest of your life, this is what you will do. If you bring a baby into this world, you will be a true father to that baby. That is a sign of what a true man is. I really believe this. If you bring a baby in the world and you're not a father to them, then you really haven't truly understood what manhood is all about. This saying is very true. Never leave a hole in the heart of a person where their father belongs. And I tell that to my players. You know, I tell this to my players. So many of you are come from a cycle where you did not have a dad in your life. Many of you had a wonderful, wonderful dad in your life. But a whole lot of you did not have that dad in your life. One other thought about this, I never talk about marriage. I never talk about the relationship with the mom, okay? I never talk about the relationship, or very seldom, other than respecting women, about marriage. I think that's just too personal. It's too complicated. Everyone has their own situation. I think it's a little too much judgmental, and I like to stay out of that. That's such a personal area. Maybe other people think that they should get into it. I don't. I think, though, talking about being a father, you can be a good father whether you are married, divorced, never married. That fact, is irrelevant to the fact you can be a strong father in the life of your players. Let's go back to the cycle. If you're part of that cycle, you got to break it. It is very, very hard when you don't have that male role model in your house to show you what a good dad can be. So many of my players have come to me and said, Coach, I don't have that role model. I miss it. There's a hole in my heart. So I don't know how to behave. Sometimes I behave this way because I don't have that male role model. Well, what do we tell them in our football program? Let the coaches be your role models. That's why it's so important that as an educator, we're role models. You know, again, we don't have to be perfect people. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I really think this. If you're going to coach in my program with me and you have children, you have got to be the role model for a good father. I don't care if you're divorced. I don't care if you're never married. Whatever your situation is, that's fine. Not fine, but it's up to you. But you will be the good role model of being a good father. Because if you're coaching in our program and you're not a good father to your own children, I really don't think you can fit in. You're just not part of the culture that we want to experience. I think the same thing is true when you're dealing with your students. You know, it can cross lines. A female can be a role model to the male students. A male can be a role model to the female students. But just my philosophy, I think there's a little bit more of a bond when you're talking about male to male, female to female. You know, as a teacher, are you a role model for your students? Do you live the kind of life that you think those people should be, that your students can set you up and say, I want to be like Miss So-and-so. I want to be like Mr. So-and-so. Just as simple as that. Those are just 2 of the 10. You know, as I was telling those, I hope that you envision in your own mind you telling stories to your students about the things that you consider a good attitude. All the way from kindergarten, I think there are wonderful stories you can tell those little ones all the way up to high school students. And have the confidence that you can do it. I hope you look forward to it. You know, let me talk a little bit about what's going to happen on the virtual night when we all get together virtually. All right, what we're going to do is you're going to be in a group of people who are the same grade level or have the same special interest that you do. And one of the activities is you're going to go around and you'll have your list of 10 keys to a good attitude, and then a little bit later, 10 keys to why, and you're going to read one, all right? And then everyone's going to have their list, and then the next person will read one, the next person, and so on, so on. You just keep going around the circle until everybody's read all theirs. And then, of course, if it's a duplicate, you'll cross it off on your list. But also what you'll do on your list is if you hear one you don't have, you'll write it down. So now your list of 10 is going to become a list of 15, 18, maybe even 20, because other people have great ideas. Remember, one of my theories, the best place to learn is from other people to do the same thing as you, actual classroom teachers, actual guidance counselors. As simple as that. Then what I'd like you to do is sit down and evaluate. Do I want to change anything? Do I like my original 10? Or do I just love the things that the other people presented? And what I hope is as you go through, that each one of those points stimulates a little bit of discussion. I think you're really going to enjoy the virtual night where you get to sit around and talk to each other about developing a good attitude and becoming a character educator. And every one of the things in this class, the primary goal is to stimulate a response in you that's going to help you become a better educator, become the best version of you that you can be. Okay, let's move on to the next panel. All right, the next panel is, for this particular year, it says Golden Panther. Of course, if you say Middies or Eagles or whatever, 10 keys to why you are a Golden Panther football player. I think you have to reflect on that. The big word there that stands out is why you are a football player. All right, have you ever thought about that? Why somebody should be in your class? Here's the next activity that I want you to do. I want you to list 10 reasons why a student should be in your class. In order to help you with that, I want you to imagine something. You are a teacher, you are a counselor, you are an administrator in Montgomery County. Let's use that for an example. And they have a system, let's just say you're a 5th grade teacher. They have a system where students in Montgomery County could pick any 5th grade teacher in the entire county that they wanted to pick. So now you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of students choosing from hundreds of teachers. Why would they pick yours? What would make your class the one that students and parents would want to be in? I think you need to reflect upon that. All right, how about pausing the video? Make your list of 10 reasons why someone would want to be in your class. Okay, welcome back. Again, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you take that list and apply it to your everyday life. I hope you think about it. I hope it's motivation. I hope it helped you to reconnect to why you got into business in the first place. Okay? Your whys, I would hope, would do that. Because I really believe this. If you know the why, the how will happen. If you don't know the why, you're just drifting at sea. If you don't know where you're going, that's where you'll end up, as simple as that. Let's talk about how I do that particular part of the card. So when do we do it? 10 reasons, 10 whys, okay? We have 10 two-a-days. At the end of every two-a-day, I will say, sit down now, and I'm going to talk to you. Now, our two-a-days are very, very hard. I make no excuse for that. We work very hard. They're exhausted. I tell them, this might be the most demanding physical day that you've had at this point in your life, and maybe any time in your life, the most demanding physical day you've ever had. Why'd you do it? Why didn't you just stay home? Why didn't you go to the swimming pool? Why didn't you play with the sticks, play video games? Why did you come in here and push yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally to points that you didn't think you could be pushed to? Why did you go through that? Why did the coaches push you through that? Well, I'm going to tell you why. And then each day, I will tell these young men why they are in the program. Okay? Let's go to my card, and I hope that you have a copy of the card. Reason number 2. Reason number 1, self-esteem is huge. That's the most important one. But I'm going to talk today about reason number 2, be part of a team. Everyone has an inherent desire to belong to a group. As simple as that. All our lives, we're going to want to belong to a group. You know, when you go to school, you want to identify with your school. And then the school tries to keep that identification the rest of your life. Your friends are a group that you identify with, and hopefully you'll keep that bond the rest of your life. You know, I have a belief, it comes from one of those old 60s songs. Anyone or anything you once loved a lot, you'll always love a little. And I believe that. So you're going to be part of a group. And groups identify with each other. They take on very similar personalities. You know, when you see a motorcycle gang, they all wear the black vest with the symbol on the back and everything else. Why do people join the motorcycle gangs? Do they like motorcycles? Probably. Do they like excitement? I'm sure. But you know, more than anything else, they want to be part of a group. As simple as that. Why do people join country clubs? The golf is nice. Okay, that's good. The clubhouse is nice. That's good. The swimming pool's nice. But you know the main reason? They want me to become part of a group. My group is the country club group. Just as simple as that. You know, even the students that call themselves rebels. I'm a rebel, man. I'm my own man. They all look the same. They all dress the same, use the same terminology, use the same phrases. You know, that's the group they want. And belonging to a group is good. I think you need to understand that I want to belong to this group. Why do people join specific churches? Lots of reasons. A lot of them faith-based. But why do you join that group? You identify with that group. You say, I'm a member of Holy Angels Parish. In our case, that's where we belong. Okay? Let's relate that to why you're on the football team and why you just went through the practice that you went through. You are now part of, let's say at Chaminade Julienne, the Eagle family. You're an Eagle now, you'll be an Eagle all your life. You are just passing through that uniform. Someone wore that uniform before you, you're wearing it now, and someone's going to wear it after you. You belong to a group of very special people, very proud people, which also ties into one of the other reasons later on when we talk about Eagle Pride, about Tiger Pride, Midi Pride, Big Blue Pride, how important it is for you to take pride in belonging to the group. The group that you belong to has a tremendous requirement to get in. You just did part of that requirement. You went through a two-a-day. I am going to demand that you meet the standards of that group because take pride in that group. There's times in your life later on where you're going to want to act in a certain way, and I hope you stop and think, wait a minute, that's not the way an eagle acts. That's not who I am. A big part of who I am is an eagle, and eagles don't act that way. Or, on the positive side, I'm going to act this way because that's the way eagles do things. A huge desire, and reason number 2, be part of a group. Okay, let's go to your card. Number 4, a learning experience. Football is just a conduit. It's great. I want you to love every minute that you're a football player. But the main reason you're out here is help you develop the habits and skills to become a successful person the rest of your life. I hope that all your life, the things that you've learned in football are going to carry on. Now, I talk about a lot of things when I talk about it being a learning experience. But one of the things is the story that I tell at that point, I tell them about the dome. And here's what the dome is. So let's take Middletown, okay? So what I told them at Middletown was this. There is a tinted dome that goes over the field. Starts at one end line, finishes at the other end line. Starts at the out of bounds line, goes to the other out of bounds lines. Inside that dome is the Midi Dome. It's clear, you can see through it, but it's tinted purple. When you step on that football field, you now go in the dome. You now go into a perfect world. You now go in a situation where everything that you do is a learning experience. You're not just practicing. You're not just playing games. You are learning skills that are going to help you the rest of your life. And here's the key to the dome. Everything that happens in that dome is perfect. If you want something, you work hard for it. There is no such thing as bigotry or prejudice in that dome. If you don't like black people, I'll find a black guy to knock you down. You don't like white guys, I'll find a white guy to knock you down. You don't like brown guys, I'll find a brown guy to knock you down. You don't like yellow guys, I'll find a yellow guy to knock you down. Everything in that dome is perfect. We don't accept anything that's not perfect. If we tell you to step on the line, you don't step 6 inches over the line, you don't stick 6 inches behind the line, you step on the line. No bad language. We never accept that. There's no need for it. We don't accept bad language. There's no disrespect. You don't ever talk down to a teammate or disrespect a teammate in any way, shape, or form. You are in the dome and it's perfect. You know, an exercise that I like to do then is I ask 2 of my players, go outside the room. Go outside, they're on the field, so go outside the dome. I yell to them, is there bigotry out there? They say yes. Is there prejudice out there? They say yes. Are there lazy people out there? They say yes. Is there disrespect out there? They say yes. Come on back into the dome, man. And we cheer and we bring them back and we hug them when they come back in the dome. You're back to where life is perfect. Now, why do we relate to dome? All your life live in a dome. You know, you're going to go into a world that's not part of the dome. But you live that life and you're going to have a great life. Now, one other story that I like to tell about the dome is that it applies to Middletown. So I take over the job at Middletown, but I haven't given the dome talk yet. I haven't explained to them exactly what are the principles, what's the culture of our program. And I'm up in my office, and I don't know the players that well yet. Love being a Midi, though. Love being a Midi. And they say, Coach, 2 guys are going to fight down in the locker room. And they know I talk about them. So I said, send them up here. One guy, Dwayne, is a little short black guy, meaner and tougher than nails, and a great football player. Jake is 6'5", big white guy with a mohawk. Tough, good, both of them good kids. Really, really good young men. Shouldn't call them kids, young men. So I said, okay, what's going on? What's up? They start going on and on and on and on and on. And finally I said, whoa, wait a minute. Did you just say something that leads me to believe this is a racial situation? And Jake goes, yeah, I don't like black people that much. And Dwayne goes, I don't like white people that much. I said, oh, you guys just wasted 10 minutes of all our time. I didn't know it was racial. Here's how we're going to solve this. You're both cut. I said, inside the dome is perfect. And if you two are racist, if you two have bias and bigotry, I'm going to throw you outside the dome because we're still perfect. Now, I don't believe in cutting players, but also the culture of our program has to be maintained. And one of the things, a line that can't be crossed, is racial prejudice. It just cannot be crossed. You got to go. So you two are, Coach, we're the 2 best players on your team. We're both first team all league, and they were. They're great players and good kids. And I said, no, you two don't understand. You know, I already know who the security officer is. I'm going to call Officer Davis. I know where you guys fight. You fight down Sunset Park, down in Middletown. I'm going to tell them, get out there because you two are probably going to show up at Sunset and have a fight. But you're cut. Please leave out. No, leave. All right? And I was sincere. That's one of the few things. Remember I told you very few that I would cut? Racial prejudice. You got to go. So I had to knock on the door. It was Jake and Dwayne. I said, come on in. What do you guys want? I said, Coach, did you mean racial as not liking people from another race? I said, all right. We all know we're playing the same game. I'm going to draw the line in the sand again because I haven't given you guys the dome talk yet. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't want to cut them. You know, I wanted them to learn a lesson, but I didn't cut them. So it worked out well. But here's what I told them. I said, here, for the rest of your senior year, you're going to change your locker so you're next to each other. When we go to anything on a bus, you're going to sit next to each other. At the pregame meals, you're going to sit next to each other. And if I even hear a whiffle out of you two, anything at all, you're going to be cut. You okay? They said, yeah, coach, we're okay. Well, this is one of those stories that has a wonderful ending. 20 years later, I'm coaching the Hamilton Big Blue, and I look over, and here they come. Dwayne, short guy, Big Jake, great big guy, looked exactly the same as they did 20 years earlier when they were playing for me at Middletown. And by the way, they both had great senior years. Went on outstanding. We beat Massillon at Massillon. Dwayne had 170 yards there. Jake, of course, was all Ohio. Both of them just great players and really good people. Just needed a little shake up on something there. You know, and I said, how are you two doing? I said, Coach, you know, Dwayne's nephew plays for Big Blue. We heard you told a story about us. I said, yeah. I said, Coach, we're friends to this day. Dwayne owns a bar at Middletown, right as you come into town there. And every once in a while, Jake and his guys stop in. And really, one thing Dwayne says, I always know if Jake's there, I got my back covered. There's never any trouble. You walk, Jake and his guys walk in, you're a little scared because, you know, they're sort of scary guys. But I always know I got my back covered because Jake and I have had that kind of friendship. But that's what I'm talking about as far as being in the dome and it being perfect and you learn a lesson. All right, one other one that I want to talk about, and that is lesson number 5, make people proud of you. And that's the last one I'm going to tell stories about. You know, if the only reason you're playing football is to make other people proud of you, you probably shouldn't be playing. If it's one of the 10, then it's right where it belongs in that thing. There's nothing wrong with making people proud of you. And I ask my players this, think of the greatest present that you've ever given to people you love, especially your parents. You know, what was it? Is it a shirt? Is it a pair of pants? Is it a power tool of some type? You know what? Most adults, if they really need something, they go buy it. Presents are nice, but presents are nice because of the thought behind of it. Now, let me just tell you this. The greatest present that you could ever give anyone that you love is to make them proud of you. There's no greater present. You know, when I was growing up, I bought my father handkerchiefs every birthday, every Christmas. I bought him handkerchiefs because I thought that's what he loved. You know, all of a sudden one day I got to be 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and I looked in his drawer and I saw all these handkerchiefs that he didn't really use. And then it hit me. My dad just acted like that was the greatest present in the world. You know, speaking of my dad, one thing here that makes me, it helps me understand all players and their parents. And you know, I have a philosophy, never expect a parent to be rational about their children. If they're totally rational about their children, they may not be a great parent. You know what? Parents are supposed to be proud of their children, maybe even to the extent where they're a little irrational. That's okay. You know, I've always taken the philosophy, if I didn't expect parents to be rational, that might have been my mistake for not understanding human nature. But I want to tell you a story about my dad. My dad might have been one of the most unrational men you ever met in your life, but he also was one of the men who loved his children more than anyone that you ever met in your life. And the story that I relate to is this. I was a sophomore in high school, playing football at Canton Central Catholic. I actually lived in Massillon, though. Canton Central drew from Massillon and Canton. Football is crazy up there. They absolutely love it. Every baby boy gets a football to this day in their crib, every male in Massillon, Ohio. So anyway, I'm a sophomore, and I have the great privilege of playing with a man named Alan Page. Alan was a senior. Alan was the lineman of the year in the state of Ohio. He went on to be an All-American at Notre Dame. He went on to be an All-Pro. Every year he was in professional football. First year inductee into the Pro Hall of Fame. But it's even more special about Alan, a better person. He went on to become a Supreme Court Justice for the state of Minnesota, the first African-American ever to achieve that kind of an accomplishment. And then he has a school in Minnesota named the Alan Page School. So he's a wonderful man, and I'm so proud that he was my teammate, but he was a great football player. I was about a 6'1", 180-pound sophomore tackle. If they had a fourth team, I would have been fourth. The only reason I was third team because they only had 3 teams. Every day in practice, I had to go against Alan because I was on the scout team and I had to go against Alan. Well, in Massillon, all the dads came out and watched practice. It's just something they did. My dad was standing outside the locker room, and Alan was always the first one to come out of the locker room. For some reason, man, he showered and he got out of there. So my dad every day would say to Alan, hey, Alan, Jim really put one on you today. You know, Jim should be the starting offensive tackle over you. And Alan was such a quality person that 99% of the time he laughed. He had a good relationship with my dad. My dad did some things with Alan or for Alan, so they had a really good relationship. So usually he laughed, but every once in a while, Alan would give me a little reminder in practice. He said, "Tell that to your old man." And usually he would just go through the drill, but every once in a while he would absolutely dump me. So on the way home, I would say to my dad, I said, "Dad, Alan doesn't think that's too funny." "Oh, what do you mean funny? You are better than Alan." And it took me a long time to realize my dad believed that. But you know what? I made my dad so proud of me that he thought I was better than Alan Page. I don't know if there's any present that I could ever give a dad greater than him seeing me in that light. Another thing about making people proud of you, I told this story at Withrow and went into great detail about who the people are that you can make proud of you, how you can make them proud of you. And I had a player come up to me, and the player was a young man who played basketball only until his senior year, and his buddies talked him into going out for football. And he was a very good player. I was thrilled to have him on the team. So I finished that particular story. We're walking off the field. He says, "Coach Blaze, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Uh-oh, here it comes. He's going to quit." He said, "I just want to tell you, I am so glad that I am playing football." He said, "It didn't really hit me until you just gave me that talk. You see, Coach, from the time I was in second grade, I've been the best basketball player in the city of Cincinnati. And everybody talked to me and everybody looked at me at was myself as a basketball player. And my family, though, was the one people that saw, you're more than a basketball player. Don't let your entire identity be built on being a basketball player. Branch out, do other things. Quite obviously, academically is what we're really talking about, and socially. But in his case, he said, "Coach, I didn't want to play football." He said, "But I just thought to myself, how proud my parents and family would be if I tried something different and really proved that I could excel in more than just a basketball." He said, "Your talk just tied it all together for me, and I'm so proud that I am of myself that I'm making my parents proud that I am a football player now." As simple as that. So that was a great example. Now, one other thing that happens is, here's something that I do with my seniors every year. We have at the last football game, senior ceremonies, okay? And what that is you've all seen it. The people walk across the field, and they're the seniors there, and they're with their parents or someone who is very special to them. Well, during senior week, I will get all my seniors together, and I'll say, "Listen, I want you to write a letter to your parents, or whoever's going to be there at senior night with you, and tell them that you hope that you made them proud by playing football, by being a football player. Here are the lessons that you learned by playing football. And I hope that that what you learned in football will lead to becoming the man that you want to be. And I hope that man is something that your parents are proud of." And that is the main message that I want you to write, and a message to your parents. Do not tell your parents. What we're going to do on game night is you will give those letters to a designated coach, all right? Well, after we warm up and you're getting ready to go over and join your parents, that coach will give you your letters, and then you give it to your parents. Now, I also do this. I tell my assistant coaches, here are your players. You have one or two seniors, maybe three seniors. Call them and find out who's coming to senior night, okay? What I want you to do when you call them, and sometimes I did it personally. As a matter of fact, a lot of times I did it personally, just the way it worked out, is I tell them, I would like you to write a letter to your son or special person involved and tell them how proud of them you are because of being a football player, but not so much for being a football player because of the lessons that they learned in playing football. Now, one nice thing about making those calls is we made sure that every player had somebody there. I mean, we would call, I would call, my coaches would call. We'd call until granddad, uncle, neighbor, somebody had somebody in their life that was going to walk out there with them on senior night. So also don't tell them that you're writing that letter. Give it to them when they come to you. So here's the situation. The seniors walk out, warm-ups are done, they join their parents, they exchange those letters, all right? They get introduced. We have a senior-only locker room for a few minutes. The seniors go in and read their letters from their parents. The parents go up in the stands and read the letters from their sons or whoever they're representing, all right? You know, I like to sit in the locker room and just see the kids' faces. Just bawling, crying. Remember, this is their last home game. It all starts to come together, and that feeling is, you know, I did make my parents proud of me. I just gave them the greatest present that I could possibly give them to make them proud of me. You know, I hope that when you write your stories, and you're going to write a story as to why someone would be in your class. So after you write your 10 reasons, which we talked about earlier and you've already written, when we do virtual night, you're going to go around the room and you're going to tell a story about why. Okay, here's one of my whys. And again, your list of 10 is going to grow into a list of 18 or so, and you're going to decide these are the reasons why someone would want to be in my class. And I hope it's something that not only affects you now, but it's something that will continue to affect you as you hit those tough times, as you find ways to motivate your students. Go back and examine, why would somebody want to be in my class? Now let me add this to you. You have to tell them that. I don't think, well, they know why they should be in my class. They don't. They have no idea why they should take Spanish or Algebra 2 or English or whatever. They don't have any idea. I think you have to have a plan to tell them why they are in your class. Okay, that completes the material for the class. You now have everything you need to do the required assignments. Let's review them again. For 1 credit, you watched the video, you just finished that, you've done the worksheet. You have to email me 1 question and your response to 3 of the articles, and you've got your 1 credit. For 2 credits, you do the requirements for 1 credit plus write a 6-page reflective paper and mail it to me. For 3 credits, you would pick 1 of the assignments and write a 2-page reflective paper. You can finish that now. You watched the video. If you want to, you can do everything tomorrow and mail it in to me. There is no need to wait for a later date. Go ahead and mail your requirements in. After you participate in the virtual night, you're done. Everything is done and completed. All right. I want to thank you for taking this class. I hope that we challenged you to reflect on your why. I hope that we challenge you to be a character educator, not just an educator, and I hope that you're a better educator. You know, we're going to have other classes in this series of character education. I hope you have the opportunity to take them if it's something that you need and you would like to do. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this class.